Alright guys, we're starting off today, day one, Piston Power Show. We're here, we just opened 11 o'clock. We're in the Hot Rod Asylum room. You're looking on the phone and stuff. Here we go.
What's that?
So what do you got? Here we are. Oh boy.
Hello.
You look fine. So we're going to start walking around here, day one, Piston Power Show. Here we go. day 2 here Saturday at the Piston Power Show in Cleveland. I'm fresh and ready. Ted is, how are you doing, Ted? You look like
fine.
You're one step above dead.
Just fine.
We spent all day there Friday filming, and we're gonna go to Walmart and get a couple of cheap car show chairs to sit in because there's nowhere to sit. And we can't stand there. I'm dying. I can't sleep in these hotel beds. I'm crippled every morning I get up like an old person. And we had some breakfast in quotation marks. Now we're going to go to Walmart, get some chairs, break my don't go to Walmart rule. Thanks a lot for that. You look wonderful. Let's go. We're in a big Dodge, Bighorn rental truck with it's got a Hemi. And we're gonna go there, and we'll start day 2 off at the Piston Power Show in Cleveland. Let's go!
and you gotta be crazy to build a car to be in here. Do what? Yeah, no. Yeah. Well, he'll come up here, I'll handle this and then go over. Yep. Best in show, Alan Wood, 34 Coupe. While he's putting on his new jacket, we do our awards on Saturday, so everybody that comes to the show Saturday night and Sunday can see who won except for poor Ed. Ed's the perfect person for us to screw this up with. He's got the greatest personality name in New York City.
I'm going to get Ted a straight jacket for next year. A little bit of the awards Saturday night. They give the awards out. Just did show best of show with a straight jacket that goes with it, and the jukebox was a big best of show. So we got a little bit more show here Saturday night, and then Sunday, and then we're done with the 2025 Piston Powered Show, Hot Rod Asylum. Hey guys, here we are at the Piston Powered Show. We're outside the Expo Center in the rain. It's raining out. I got Ted in the truck, and today's actually Sunday, but I'm using this as some filler because we're sitting here in the rain. The show is super packed on Saturday and Friday, made it hard to film, so I don't know how the quality of this video is going to come out quality-wise. It's probably just going to be a lot of music because it is super hard to film 1,000 people and there's music constantly in the background, so I don't know how it's going to come out, but we're here at the show. Don't roll the window down. We're at the show and it is what it is. And we'll try to make a video the best we can and check out the cars at the Piston Powered Show in Cleveland, Ohio 2025. So now we're going to brave the rain and go into the building and finish out. Hopefully we can dodge this rain. It's supposed to stop about 2 o'clock and we should get a clear spot to run home and get back at probably 11 o'clock at night. So we're going to go back in the show for Sunday, day 3. was my video on the 2025 Piston Power Show. So many people, lots of loud music, so we had to do most of it in time-lapse, and, or not time-lapse, but put YouTube music over it because it was so chaotic. Hopefully you're able to see some cool cars. The orange 63 split-window Corvette ended up winning the big prize. They took home over $12,000 in show winnings, and Ted's like, wow, that's a lot of money, $12,000 to win at a show, or $11,000 and change, whatever it was. So I'm like, yeah, they probably spent $1 million building that car to win 11 grand. What a deal. No, but that car was nuts. It was built by, I think, Scott's Hot Rods in PA, and like, you know, over the top crazy. I like the Mopars in the lower room. Of course, I'm building a Dodge Daytona clone here starting this fall on the channel, so I spent a lot of time looking at B-body Mopars. I'm glad there was a whole room of them. Actually, that 70 Superbird convertible in red, that's Don Meyer's car that put on the Hot Rod Asylum upstairs with the Slick Devils Car Club, and he took that in trade. It's actually a satellite convertible 318 automatic car, but I was looking it over. It wasn't a Janet kit, it was a cheaper Shadow Rods or whatever, I don't know, kit on the front of that. Doesn't even have functional headlights, but he took it in on trade on a couple other things. So saw that there, but that blue 69 GTX that was super, super, super nice with the air grabber hood, that's essentially the car that I have that I'm going to turn into Daytona. A blue GTX with a black interior. That's the car that I own, according to the VIN number. Blue, you know, blue. I don't have the build or the fender tag to see all the options, but it was originally a B5 blue, black interior, non-air grabber, but you know, very similar to that GTX in the show that was in there, and that car is very nice. So, like I said, I spent a lot of time looking at interiors because that's one thing I don't know about these B-bodies. Is I wanted to rally like Charger. All the Dodge Daytonas were Charger RTs, so they would have had the rally dashes with the big gauges and like the tic-tac tack and all that stuff. Unfortunately, I started with a GTX, which has a non-rally dash, which is the sweet little gauges, and it's all completely different. And B-body dashes, non-rally or rally, are horrendously expensive, so I took pictures to see what I need. I might be doing some custom action on this car. This car might morph into a Restomod Dodge Daytona, because to buy all the original parts to do it perfectly original adds thousands and thousands of dollars. Like basically a restored rally dash for one of those cars, if you buy the rally frame and all the components and like restore it, you're talking like $5,000 for, you know, a very nice restored dashboard. Like, that's insane. With the wiring harness for one of those cars, I was going to use a universal wiring kit. And now I'm on a Dodge Daytona rant, but I was going to use a universal wiring kit for those, which are, you know, street rod universal wiring kits. You know, you buy the fuse panel and the wires are labeled. They're like $300, $400, $500 or $600 for painless or whatever. Oh no, a reproduction Mopar wiring harness. So you want the block to go through the firewall and all that stuff and hook to the stock gauges. They're $1,500. I'm like, okay. So anyways, I was looking at interiors and other stuff, getting figured out, so we're going there. But before we do all that, we're going to get back on this truck. It's actually been a while since I've been in the shop. I got some parts. If you watched the previous video to this, going to the show, I went to Summit Racing in the scratch and dent area and got some, like a radiator, got some primer and stuff. Oh, actually I got the drop spindles I need to drop this front end, and we'll be going through all that in the future. But anyways, the show was super cool, really big, really, really nice stuff. Thousands and thousands of people. It was like Saturday and Sunday were super packed. It was crazy. That if you're ever going to see a good indoor show, the Piston Power Show at the I-X Center in Cleveland is a really good show. Good quality cars, like a lot of stuff, a swap meet in the back, 2 floors of stuff. It's a really impressive indoor car show. So hopefully this video came out all right. Like I said, there were so many people and noise and music and crowding, and hopefully I was able to get some footage of the cars that is, you know, you guys enjoy. I don't have like media passes to get in places ahead of time. We were there on setup day on a Wednesday, and the show didn't start till Friday. And then Thursday is the day I went down in the other video where I went to Cornfield Customs and got my frame rails for my Plymouth. But the show wasn't really set up on Wednesday. Like, it was only like a third full, and the lights are off in the building for the most part. It wasn't lit up like it is when it's actually showtime. So it wasn't really conducive to filming then because most of the displays weren't set up. So really on these big shows, unless you got like a media badge and can get in before the show is open, like several hours, but it's set up, it's really, really hard to get good quality like content. You know, there's so many, especially there's so many people in the way. Like I said, it's very, very difficult to film like a professional. Obviously, I'm not a professional. I'm just a schmoo with a camera doing it at home, but try to take you guys along for the experience and see some of the cars. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and we had a fun time, a long time. It was 5 days on the road, a rental truck, hotel rooms, food, stuff. Very expensive, but cool to be there, cool to be invited to the show. There's basically 40 hot rods in the Asylum, or one of the 40 cars in there, and got to see the Dirty Dozen cars in the middle and all that stuff. So hopefully there's something you guys watched in this show, and we're going to get back to our regularly scheduled program of sanding primer on the C10. But in a couple weeks, if you want on the road stuff, Ted and I are going to the Spring Carlisle Swap Meet in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. We'll be there Friday and Saturday, the 25th, 26th, whatever the date is of April, with my friend Bob, and we'll be looking for parts, probably Dodge parts that I can't afford because I'm broke from this trip. But we'll be down there looking around. So if you see us pulling a wagon, come by and say hi. And if you see any B-body Mopar parts that are cheap that I can afford down there, hopefully you don't buy them because I need to buy them. So thanks for watching the 2025 Piston Power Show in Cleveland. We'll see you next time. Back on the C10, got to get this thing ready. Spring's coming. Even though it's 30-something degrees out today and snowing in April. April Fool's Day joke, I guess, on me. But got to get this thing ready for paint. Temperatures are coming up, and I want to get this truck on the road this summer. So I got to get back at it. Can't be out running around half the country all the time. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bam. Here, going on the road and working on projects at the Quick Speed Shop.